The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. It's your midweek fix for racing news and information. Brought to you by the Championship Racing Network. Now let's head trackside to join your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson.
Welcome into the latest edition of Crossed Flags. Steve West, Matt Nicholson. Post-election day. That's as much as we're going to mention of that. Because here's the thing. If you tuned into this podcast to hear stuff about yesterday's election and what happened,
turn it off.
You're in the wrong podcast. We're talking nothing but racing. That's it. Nothing but racing.
Yep.
Coming up a little bit later on, we'll talk a little bit about Martinsville because, what a weekend there. But first, I want to talk a little Formula One here. The Alpine team. And if the name doesn't sound familiar to you in Formula One terms, this is the former Renault operation. Renault has different brands underneath their umbrella, kind of like General Motors has Chevrolet and GMC and Buick and Cadillac, right? Well, Renault, which doesn't sell cars here in the United States, has a sports car division called Alpine, or Alpine as the way it would be spelled. We'll show you their logo here in just a second. The sports car company side of things is now what the Renault F1 team used to be called. And they were struggling. I mean, you want to talk about really struggling to kick off this year.
It was bad.
Real bad. Until last weekend at Brazil. And all of a sudden, rain and everything else seemed to conspire and made those cars be fantastic to the point where they finished second and third. Now, again, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Formula One, points don't get awarded like they do in NASCAR. Points get awarded in NASCAR for like 38 car start. You win the race, you get 38 points. You finish last, you get 1 point, right? No. Only those who finish inside the top 10 in Formula One get points. You win the race, you get 25 points. You finish second, well, and then you drop all the way down to 10th, right? Mm-hmm. Alpine, out of the clear blue sky, finished second and third. They jumped from 9th in the Constructors' Cup points all the way up to 6th. Just like that.
Being the first F1 race I've watched every lap of this year because, you know, when time changes and you wake up at the crack of you-know-what on Sunday and can't go to sleep, you're like, okay, click, here we go. Then you find out F1 is went into the basic thing of hurry-up mode, and they're on ESPNU.
Yeah, because
ESPNU.
Rain. They wanted to try and beat the hardest of the rain, which they did for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part they did. And it was clear to me with some of the repaving and the reconfiguration that they did to Interlagos, some cars were junk. Alpine's was pretty sporty.
The problem that Alpine has said that they have had pretty much all year long was the fact that their cars came in too heavy. Mm-hmm. And while that doesn't work when you're talking about really dry conditions like we had at Circuit of the Americas or even in Mexico City a couple of weeks ago, when you're talking about rain, that actually does become an advantage because you're able to get the car planted down a little more weight on those treaded tires and sheds the water a little bit better. All those lighter cars spinning out. I mean, some fairly good names found themselves out of this race pretty early, in fact, because they overdid it. A lot of them overdid it in qualifying and practice sessions, too. Had a lot of messed up cars over the course of that weekend.
The Aston Martins were terrible.
They were horrible.
When you can see cars that are porpoising and bouncing so bad on a rainy track that through the mist and the fog, you see the cars throwing spark trails about 20 feet behind the car. You're like, ooh, yeah.
That's not good. Not good at all.
No.
Lewis Hamilton was complaining about how the car was bouncing pretty much the whole race. He was able to survive it and finish respectably for a really bad car. But Alpine, man, jumping up there, the only thing that really overshadowed them was Max Verstappen, who had a really bad qualifying effort. He qualified 17th and turns around and wins the race, and by the end of the race, he's got an almost 20-second gap.
Thought he had a grid penalty. This race.
Yeah. Well, he did qualify bad, but he had a five grid spot
Yeah.
penalty. So he started 17th. Let me put it that way. Qualified 12th, started 17th because of the 5 grid spot penalty.
Last row because Alex Albon did not start the race, nor did Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
So,
but here's the fun part about this, and Matt caught this after the fact. Alpine jumping up from 9th to 6th in the Constructors' Cup standings. And understand that, no, the season's not yet over. They have Vegas coming up later on this month, and then they got, is it 3 races? 2 races in the Middle East. So we got at least 3 more races to go before the end of the year. So things can still change. It's a very tight battle from 6th to about 8th.
I think it's Qatar and Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
I think.
And so we got Vegas first, then Qatar, Abu Dhabi. 3 races left to go in the year. So, yes, things can still change in that very tight battle in the Constructors' Cup standings between 6th, 7th, and 8th. I would try to include 9th, but they'd have to have a day like Alpine did, and I don't see that out of Williams. But that means money. Where you place as a team in the Constructors' Cup standings looks like owner points. It's the owner standings in NASCAR, but it means major money.
When I heard David Croft say this on Sky Sports, I immediately heard the voice of Chris Tucker come into my mind off of Friday. No, not Friday. Rush Hour. Why did I say Friday? The 2-3 finish that catapulted them into 6th place in the constructors' standings is to the tune of a $50 million potential bonus.
Yeah,
$50 million for jumping 3 spots. Where do I sign up?
Yeah. Where does anybody sign up for that?
Where do I sign up? I will immediately go obtain my super license points, and I don't care if it takes me a week. I will drive for 7 straight days to obtain my super license points, or I could go run for that bonus.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Good night almighty. The amount of money that gets thrown around in Formula One is unreal. All right, from there, let's go from what happened in Martinsville over the weekend, and we're going to concentrate on the Cup Series here. There was
shenanigans.
There were shenanigans in the Xfinity Series. Had a fairly light punch thrown by Chandler Smith at Cole Custer because he was upset that Cole Custer didn't allow him to do, I don't know, whatever it was that he thought Cole Custer needed to let him do. Sorry, folks, you're racing at the end of the race. You're going for a checkered flag. You're trying for a playoff spot, or in this case, trying for a spot in the championship 4. I don't really owe you much. That's the way that it goes. And then we come to the Cup Series race, Sunday evening. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is Christopher Bell. Note the car right behind him. Got the nose of the 23 car of Bubba Wallace there. That's just the beginnings of controversy.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing on Sunday that we did on Saturday in the Xfinity Series race, which is to set the 4 drivers who are going to go for the title at Phoenix this weekend. Cutting out 4. Christopher Bell was one of those ones who was fighting for it. Drives for Toyota. Notice the mark that's on the front of Bubba Wallace's 23, the nose that you can see right there. That's a Toyota. Then there's the saga of Chevrolet. Remind me when right after we got done cutting down from the round of 12 into the round of 8, I mean immediately after, right as the race ended, remind me how many Hendrick Motorsports cars were in the playoffs?
It was 4.
That was half. Half of the playoff field in the round of 8, right after we dropped that checkered flag there, was Hendrick Motorsports drivers. Then, of course, we got the disqualification. Alex Bowman, he's out. Out of 3 Hendrick Motorsports drivers, how many do you think made the final 4?
If you don't watch the race, you would think there was a shot that 2 could have made it.
Down to 1.
But only 1.
Down to 1. It's William Byron. But there's controversy there, too. You want to start with this one?
Sure. Pick your poison, because I could go all day on both of them.
I know. We'll start with this one because this one might be actually fairly more egregious. Christopher Bell finds himself, after not really having the best of days at Martinsville and has a couple of problems, ends up being a lap down as we start to get into that final segment, the end-all, be-all, right? When you're a lap down, you're having a really hard time making up ground on those who are ahead of you who are not a lap down. So Christopher Bell just keeps plugging away because, again, attrition, you never know. Something might happen. You just keep going. That's a racer's mantra.
Caution falls, you get your break, you get your free pass, and you're back on the lead lap.
Exactly, because he was constantly the first driver one lap down. So he was going to get the free pass if a caution came down. Right up until the point where the leader, Ryan Blaney, who had a rocket ship all afternoon,
that if he had have driven me like he drove some folks, I would have sent him.
Well, yeah.
He was driving a little on the aggressive side.
Yeah, maybe a little bit too aggressive, considering the fact that his car was the class of the field.
But it is short tracks.
Sure.
But there's a way to drive short tracks cleanly and aggressively and over-aggressively. He was flirting to the over-aggressive side.
Yeah. But when Ryan Blaney put that 23 of Bubba Wallace a lap down, suddenly Christopher Bell's chances become a lot, let's just say a lot more in question. So we'll start our saga here with what you heard that happened over car radio with what, 10 laps or so to go?
Yeah, that was replayed with 10 laps. It was replayed from the 10 lap to go segment in the 28-minute lapse period that happened from checkered flag until said ruling happened.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing there. That he's got a tire going down. He's got something wrong with the car.
You've got a tire going
down. I have never seen a tire hold up for 10 laps at any track, much less a short track, if it's going down.
Yeah. You think about all the pressure.
Tire.
All the pressure that you're exerting on a tire at a Martinsville, they call it a paperclip for a reason.
Yeah.
It's 2 drag strips with really, really sharp turns.
If you look at behind the front wheel well of the 20 car specifically, you can see where the tire compound changes that they made, which were for the better, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Look how much the tires were wearing. You don't very commonly see black rubber buildup coming off of the tires behind the front wheel well. You don't commonly see that.
If you find, what was the car that I was looking at? Was it
Blaney?
It was Blaney's.
Blaney.
Blaney's car showed it off real well. If you can find a picture of Ryan Blaney's car in Victory Lane, that'll show it off fantastically.
You could see it well on blue cars.
That's true. Tire wear was great. The tires that Goodyear brought were fantastic. But I agree with him. The pressure that you're putting on those Goodyear tires, or any tires, truth be told, at a Martinsville, those tires aren't going to last for 10 laps.
No. Not if it's going down, it's not.
So here's the deal. Now all of a sudden we've got one Toyota team saying, how might I be able to help another Toyota team? Okay, you want to do that? Fine. Do us all a favor. Let's not be so blunt about it on the radio. Figure out a better code. There's got to be better code, better way to actually put this out there that says, hey, I'm going to figure out a way to help the 20 car, but I'm not going to be so blunt about it.
This is a spotter problem. This is a spotter problem. And I will say it. I've been in the role of a spotter at one of the top 3 level series races. I know the radio transmissions. I know what's said. When I've got the ability to hit the key up button and say something myself. All right? This is a spotter problem. The only thing that a spotter should be able to have access to at the top of that spotter stand, whether it be on the front stretch, in a turn, whatnot, the only thing they should have access to is their radio to talk with their team, a set of binoculars, and that's it. No timing and scoring, no lap counter, nothing that shows SMT data, this, that, or whatever. Or, let's just say Steve's 44 car, I'm the 10 car. Okay, 44 car, he's 1 point down, but if he gets by us, he ties, goes into the tie, and he gets the tiebreaker. That's a little bit too much information that you need to know when you have a 3,700-pound stock car under your foot and in your hands.
Yeah.
That's too much information. Limit what they can do up at the top, and you eliminate this entire problem that happened on Sunday.
So Bubba Wallace is able to actually back off a little bit, allows Christopher Bell to catch him, because there was a pretty big gap between them, because green flag pit stops tend to make big gaps.
That's a clear. That is by the black and white rule. That is a clear definition of violating the 100% rule.
Yeah. And then Christopher Bell realizes he has the chance to get by the 23 going down the back straight on the final lap.
Final lap. Freddie Kraft, the spotter for the 23. 20 is off of 2. And when you can visibly see, I mean, it's so clear to see, even Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder could have saw this. You've got Martinsville Road on the back wall. When you let off on the S of Martinsville, and that is at the halfway point.
Too early. Way too
That's
early.
clear what you're doing.
Bell sends it. Doesn't have to. Sends it hard into 3. Ends up running right into the wall like you see on this picture behind us. Now, what did he do? He didn't slow down to try and get the car off the wall.
No.
Slammed the accelerator down.
Gassed it up.
Pulled a Ross Chastain from 2022. You know that move that we called the Hail Melon? Back then wasn't illegal. Now it's illegal. NASCAR doesn't call it the Hail Melon rule. They call it a safety violation. And I get that, because after you come off of turn 4,
There's a crossover
there's
gate.
a crossover gate right there. And there's no guarantee that you're not going to hit that thing wrong and shoot yourself across the track and into oncoming traffic.
Or hit it at a wrong angle, and it delatches the gate, and it comes open onto the track.
That could also happen,
Yeah.
which is a major problem with oncoming traffic as well.
See Bristol 2002 Busch Series race.
Yeah,
Ask
so
Mike Harmon.
it's a major safety violation according to NASCAR. So despite the fact that he and William Byron tied and Christopher Bell held the tiebreaker, they said, yeah, we're not going to allow that to happen. His finish will still stand. He just will not be allowed to advance into the playoffs. Controversy number 1. How in the world did William Byron end up in a position where he was tied with Christopher Bell? That'll bring us to the Chevrolet team situation. At the beginning of the race, as they're strapping in, after they've got their engines fired, as they're doing the warm-up laps, haven't even taken the green flag to start this race yet, the 3 car, Austin Dillon driving the car, gets keyed up and goes, by the way, just looking out on the 24 car. Remember, he's going for playoffs. So is the 5. Didn't hear mention of that. I don't know why we didn't hear mention of the 5. 5 is Chevrolet too. No mention of the 5 car. Mm-hmm. Only the 24. Mm-hmm. Again, I go back to the whole situation about, folks, you got to work this better. There's got to be code over the radio. Or better yet, why even mention that on the warm-up laps before the beginning of the race? Why didn't you say something to him while you were standing on pit road before he even got in the car to start the engine?
I will just summarize this something right here. In regards to the spotter of the 3 car, Brandon Manesh, he's an idiot. Simply put, he's an idiot.
Come on, people. Come on.
Anybody that had to spot for Danica Patrick is an idiot.
Yeah. Now, as it turns out, William Byron and Christopher Bell, we got a picture of them coming up here in just a second. They know each other pretty well. They're good friends. They're all right with each other. They don't have any real big problems. You can see, they got to talking about it after the race. William Byron had a small problem that we understand had a technical problem on the car, I heard.
It was where He was racing the 16. Blaney was coming up behind the 16. Blaney sends the 16 3 wide into 1 and sends the 16 into the 24, hits the left front and knocks the toe out a little bit. So he had a little bit of a struggle, but he could still drive the car.
He could still drive the car, but he was having problems with it handling. And while he did lead for a short period of time there in that third and final segment, he started to drift back because he just couldn't keep the speed up.
And on older tires, too.
And on older tires. So eventually Kyle Larson got by him, and then Ryan Blaney got by him. Ryan Blaney got by Kyle Larson and rolls on to the win. William Byron fades back to 6th. With about, I want to say, 20, 25 laps to go, he's solidly in 6th. He and I are both watching. Him at his house, me at my house. And I'm starting to note that the 3 car of Austin Dillon, oh, there he is again, and the 1 car of Ross Chastain are catching the 24 of William Byron.
Quickly.
Real quick.
Quickly.
And then all of a sudden, they're just riding behind him.
Double file.
And right about the time I picked up this thing right here, I get a text from him. And what did you say?
I can't remember what I did.
You don't even have to quote it. You don't have to quote it.
What?
It probably goes a little further back. Effectively, he said, 3 and the 1 are blocking. Mm-hmm. And they were. Because, again, the idea, the 100% rule that he mentioned earlier, is to go as hard as you can. And generally, under any other race, if you can go grab the spot, you go grab the spot. It means points. It means money at the end of the race as you're part of the purse. All of that's bigger. It means owner points. There's a whole lot of implications behind it.
When both of you have 30 to 40 lap fresher tires than the 24, you're catching him by 0.5 to 1/10 a lap on average. Maybe a little more some laps.
And don't discount that. That's pretty big.
At Martinsville, that's huge. And then all of a sudden you get to the 24 and then you can't pass him.
Yeah, your progress suddenly stops.
The one is driving by cars on the outside and he gets to where the 24 is beside the 3. Oh, I'm just going to stop. Ross Chastain does not drive like that.
Ross Chastain's is every bit as aggressive as what we talked about Ryan Blaney being a little bit earlier. Every bit of it.
If Ross sees
every race.
If Ross sees it, Ross is going to go get it.
But suddenly we keep hearing word about, if he loses another spot, if William Byron loses another spot, he's out of the playoffs. William Byron drives a Chevrolet. See that Hendrick Motorsports right there? They drive nothing but Chevrolets. Remind me what Austin Dillon drives in that 3 car and Ross Chastain drives in that 1 car?
Chevrolet.
See where we're going with this?
Mm-hmm.
Team orders. Christopher Bell out of the playoffs because of the fact that he did a safety violation maneuver. Is there a penalty for William Byron? Well, no. Because here's the thing about it. William Byron didn't set anything up. So he's really not at fault. Now, if he had set something up, I could understand that. So this isn't like the old 2013 Michael Waltrip racing situation. Oh, you got an itch? No, it's not that. This, on the other hand, is still race manipulation. Because not only do you have Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon who could have gotten by William Byron, probably pretty easily, and they don't, but you think about a couple of the cars behind him, most notably a guy who had led a lot of laps earlier in the race, the number 6 car, Brad Keselowski. He's stuck behind the 3 and the 1 car, can't get around them to even try to get around the 24.
I'm surprised Brad did not send one of them. Mm-hmm. I'm still surprised.
That is blatant race manipulation. So there is penalties. There are penalties.
I'm going to put myself. Let's start. I'm going to put myself in the race director seat. You can disagree with me. You can agree with me. I don't care. First off, I'm not going to take 28 minutes to make a determination on what's going to happen.
And they concentrated way too much on one thing without really going and looking at every situation. They spent it all looking at the Christopher Bell situation before they finally decided on a safety violation factor.
Oh, it's a safety violation. Give me a break. You could sit there and visibly see. First off, this is an opinion. Here's my op-ed of the day. If the 20 car does not gas up and ride the wall, nothing's ever said.
That's probably true.
Nothing's
but he
ever
gassed
said.
up. He made the mistake of gassing up.
Nothing is ever said. All right. If I'm putting myself in the race director's seat and I'm channeling my inner David Hoots here, remember that name, kids? I'm calling double foul. 5 car goes in. Because
Eliminate the 24 too.
It was a manipulation by both manufacturer camps that altered the outcome of the race.
Now we get this. Understand the 5 cars are Chevrolet too.
5 cars are Chevrolet, but
he's not involved in this.
He's not even anywhere close to the same straightaway.
He was actually ahead of that. Yeah,
he was way ahead of that. Okay, I'm calling double foul. 5 car goes in based off of radio transmission by Chevrolet, because I'm involved in the 1 and the 3 on that, and the 23 to alter it for the 20. That's double race manipulation. Therefore, it's a double foul. 5 car goes in. But
penalties are suspensions.
Penalties came yesterday at about 5:30, right before all the fun was getting ready to start last night.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the college football playoff bracket.
Yes.
All right. 9 total people received suspensions.
Wow.
9 total people. If you ask me, should have been 12.
Yeah, I could see the argument for it.
Whoa. Let me back up. It should have been 9. 3 of them. 3 of them. I don't understand why these 3 fell into the category, because their voices were not even anywhere on the radio.
Captain of your crew.
Okay.
It's got to be it.
$100,000 fine and docked 50 points per car. 3, 1, 23.
The biggest hurt probably is the 50 points, because that affects the owner as much as it does the driver, and that affects your postseason money.
Why the competition directors were suspended is beyond me. I don't know. Tony Lunders, I don't understand. I don't think he would be the one telling Ross or Brandon McReynolds, his spotter, or the Phil Surgeon, the crew chief, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. No. What was said by Chevrolet sounds like it come directly from Jim Campbell, because he's been known to say stuff like that before.
Sure.
So
Put a little pressure on your teams.
Why are we penalizing the competition director and not the OEM in general?
And you could do that for Toyota too.
The same applies for Toyota. What did Mike Wheeler have to do with this for the 23 car? I don't get it. Don't get it.
I see where you're coming from. And yes, the penalties are fairly steep. Suspensions for the Phoenix race, fines, docking of points, owner and driver points.
Here's where I flip this, and this is where, instead of suspending your competition directors, here's where you get attention. You set the drivers out. Here's why I say
that would make a difference.
That would make a difference.
It'd open eyes, that's for sure.
Here's where you got to make it the eye opener. And if anybody that is watching this that wants to leave comment on the video,
please do,
and tell me I'm dumb, please, I will argue with you till dark tonight. Do you know why I say the drivers? That's in the words of Buford T. Justice, that's an attention getter.
Yeah. Because in the end, put him as the driver. Put me as the spotter who's telling him, hey, listen, William Byron, guy right in front of you. If you pass him, he's out of the playoffs. Okay, well, that's information that he can certainly take, and he can use it however he wants. But in the end, he's the guy holding the steering wheel with his foot on the go pedal.
I'm the one that can say, okay, I don't want to lose my job or have Chevrolet mad at me. This reeks of what happened at Daytona with Parker Retzlaff. The big stink that basically at the end of the day, Kyle Busch said, shut up about it, because he's not in the competition meetings. He's not involved in any of the stuff that's with the major competition side of it. This is a one-off deal. I wanted Bell lined up behind me, not Retzlaff. But, and RCR made this big deal out of it, whatever. Give me a break.
You're there to win the race.
If the 62 car wins Daytona, guess what? It's a de facto RCR car. Still wins.
Yeah.
Because that car was prepared in Welcome, North Carolina.
And in the end, as the driver, what is your intent? What should your intent be every single time you strap yourself into a race car? What, as the driver, should be, I use those two words very purposely, what should be your intent? I always thought it was to win.
As the person that's got the helmet on, the gloves are on my hands, the 5-point harness is over my body, and the throttle is under my foot, and the wheel is in my hands. My job is to go win the race for me. My job is to not take care of somebody else that's not paying my contract, that's not paying my bills every week or every month or however you want to do it or whatever. They're not taking care of my livelihood. The ones that are taking care of my livelihood is the car that I drive. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to use the one car, for example. The ones that are taking care of my livelihood are my sponsors that sponsor me. Anheuser-Busch, Advent Health, Moose Lodges, Kubota Tractors, Justin Marks, and Team Trackhouse. They're the one that take care of me. Manufacturer doesn't have anything to do with my contract. They take care of the team. They supply the resources for said team to drive. Okay? I've got to take care of myself. Now, if I see an opportunity where I can't win, let's say I'm at Talladega, and my car's not good enough to get out front and block good, but I'm one hell of a pusher. Mm-hmm. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to bury the nose of my Ford Mustang, my Chevrolet Camaro, or my Toyota Camry up the rear end of whoever my teammate is, and I'm going to shove them for everything they're worth.
And I would go so far as to say this. If your teammate's not right there, you go find maybe somebody who is of your same brand, sure. At that point in time, you can play that allegiance game. Chevrolet's not paying you for it. They'll be happy about it after they're done, but they're not going to give you a bonus for it.
This stuff all started a handful of years ago with this manufacturer allegiance garbage that spurred and started at super speedways. Oh, Chevrolets, you've got to all run together. Fords, you've got to all run together. Toyotas, you got to all run together. But Denny Hamlin openly said on his podcast on Monday, Actions Detrimental, he said, not one single time since I have been a Toyota racing driver has Toyota ever told anybody within the Toyota banner that you've got to do this or got to do that at super speedway specifically, or you got to do this for a Toyota car at another track. Mm-mm. He said, they've always said, and he said, David Wilson's been very good at this. He said, y'all figure it out.
Yep. To use your same example, Talladega, if I'm behind and I know that I haven't got a car that can win the race because I'm not a good leader, but I am a good pusher, and I know I can get to second place, I'm going to figure out who it is that I think is the best driver that can get me as close to the front as possible. Because would I rather finish second, let's say I drive a Chevrolet, and let's say it's Matt in a Ford, but I believe and I know in my heart that Matt's got a car that can lead. I'll be more than happy to push him to the front, and that makes me finish second, which is the best I know I can do. I don't care the fact that it's a Ford. I knew that he could get me up as far as I knew I could go. And that is what my job is as the driver. It's not to take a fifth place car and to try and make it a winner. It's to make sure that that fifth place car finishes fifth. I want to do the best I can. That's the intent. That's what the 3 car didn't do. That's what the 1 car didn't do. And blocked a whole lot of other cars from doing it. That's technically what the 23 car didn't do as well.
Unfortunately, and this is the unfortunate side of this whole thing. Actions and things like this that happen, stock car is quickly and unfairly turning into how Formula One runs on a weekly basis.
Yes. Team orders in Formula One have been long a controversial topic for them. But unfortunately, with all of the rules that the FAA has, and they got a book about yay thick, there is no rule in there that doesn't state that the race competition director for any particular Formula One team can't look at the 2 drivers and go, Steve, Matt's vying for the title. He needs the points. Let him go by you. That's legal in Formula One. Shouldn't be, but it is. These are the things that we wonder why. I mean, in the end, the idea behind any competition, racing, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, pick your sport, pick your game, is the intent and the idea in the end to win or do the best you can. Lay it all out there on the field, on the court, on the rink, on the track. And at the end of the day, be able to go home, look at yourself in the mirror, said, I did the best I possibly could, and mean it. Instead, we got all that. I got a hard time, real hard time, rooting for William Byron this weekend. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it.
I'm pushing my chips to the 45 car.
As it is, the guys that we both said at the beginning of the Cup Series playoffs that we're going to be hoisting the title, neither one of them will. Mm-hmm. I knew your guy wasn't going to do it. Sorry, but I have no faith in Denny Hamlin when it comes to the playoffs. Regular season, Denny Hamlin, I'll be more than happy to pick him at any point in time. But something about the playoffs, that 11 team, I don't know whether it's the driver, the team, whatever it is, some combination thereof, they always figure out a way to stub their toe.
Unfortunately, Atlanta set the tone for his entire playoffs.
Yep.
By riding and lollygagging the entire race, that set the tone for the playoffs. He made his bed. He had to lay in it.
My guy, the one that I chose, was the 5 car of Kyle Larson, who, yes, won 6 races throughout the course of the season. But he looked like he was in some major storm all year long. He was on the highest of highs with the 6 wins, but, man, he could find the lowest of lows with a whole bunch more DNFs than he ever needed to have.
Quickly.
So, yeah, Denny Hamlin's out. Kyle Larson's out. I like his pick. 45, been good all year long. But then there's that 22. And I look at the 22 pretty seriously because, number one, I said it back when they disqualified Alex Bowman and put Joey Logano in. Watch out for him because this is a dangerous man. That's number one. Number two, they've had 2 races now where they could just play around because, remember, they won the first race of this round of 8. They've had 2 races to where the team could just concentrate on the Phoenix car and do everything that they could to help Ryan Blaney get in. Turns out he did.
Yep.
So he's got a chance to defend his title. But if you look at it, this is an even year. Joey Logano won his first title in 2018. 2019, not so good. 2020, made the Final Four. 2021, not so good. 2022, won the title. 2023, bounced out in the first round of the playoffs. It's 2024. Got a hard time discounting him. To me, it's between the 22 and the 45. I'll let you flip a coin from there.
Yep.
And we'll talk about it again a little bit more this weekend on The Big Show, CRN. Go to CRN Live at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time. Feel free to join us then. subscribe too, not only to this, but to CRN Live. We'd love you to do that right below here on the big picture here on YouTube. We do appreciate that. And of course, we'll be back to wrap it all up and figure out whether or not there's more controversy to talk about after Phoenix. Friday night Truck Series, Saturday Xfinity, Sunday Cup Series, and we will have 3 champions for 2024 in NASCAR. And we'll talk about it next week on Cross Flags. Hope you join us then.
You've been listening to Crossed Flags, a racing podcast. For more content like this, subscribe to CRN Live on YouTube, and you'll be set to catch the 2-hour live show every Saturday morning at 9 Eastern, 8 Central.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.